This is Gilbert Andrew Garcia. Listen to my radio show, A Tip from Gilbert. Talk, inspiration, and prayer every Monday from 11 a.m. till noon on Houston's gospel leader, KWWJ. 1360 AM and streaming live on kwwj.org. Listen on the legendary KYOK 1140 AM and streaming live on kyokradio.org. KCOH 1230 AM, The Source. On San Geek Radio 95.1 FM 1460 AM. And Aliento Radio 101.7 FM and 1540 AM. Call in at 832-570-8075 and follow me on social media. See you then. All right, Houston, we are here. This is Gilbert Andrew Garcia with another tip from Gilbert, Talk, Inspiration, and Prayer. And we're here, and I want to welcome, of course, one of my good friends, Dr. Larry Pollock. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you.
I want you to stay there for 1 second because, Houston, there's a couple of things I want to make sure we do today. And first and foremost, and we're going to do this, I think, for a while until the Lord intervenes and we have success. First, I have a prayer, of course, for my sister-in-law, who, as I've mentioned, is undergoing cancer treatment here in Houston. And she's just an extraordinary woman because I think if I was going through this, I would be mad at the Lord. I'd be screaming and hollering. I'd be a grump. I'd be angry. I'd be a hermit, all those things. But she has been touched from God. She's just a wonderful, sweet person. She takes it day by day. It's just amazing to see someone like that. And then, of course, the other is my good friend, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. Of course, we ran against each other for mayor, but we remain good friends. That's the way it's supposed to be, Houston. You know, when you run for office, you want to be a public servant. You don't want to just tear somebody down. You don't want to manipulate their record. You want to just serve and let the people decide. And ultimately, Sheila Jackson Lee, as I know, undergoing pancreatic cancer treatment. So let's say a prayer for both. Heavenly Father, I come before you with a heart burdened by illness. You are the great healer. And I place my trust in your loving hands. Grant me strength to endure this trial and courage to face each day. Pour out your healing grace upon my body, mind, and spirit. May your peace, which surpasses all understanding, fill my heart. You, in the midst of my weakness, be my strength. I surrender myself to your care, trusting that your love will sustain me. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Now, I want to do a shout out to my good friend, the Barrio Boys. They, of course, are those wild and wacky guys. Actually, what they are is kind of a veterans group. They're all some retired or in different stages of retirement. And they're just a great group that care about the community, care about their neighborhoods, and care about their families and each other. And they meet once a month. And so I thought I would recognize them. The next meeting is tomorrow at 8:30 at El Neapolito Restaurant. And of course, we're celebrating the birthdays of the month. So Didio Trevino, Ernest Trevino, Paul Ramirez, John Gonzalez, Gilbert Trevino, Emilio Camposano, Jim Hinojosa, Ray Hinojosa, Elias Sanchez Perez. I'm tearing up my tongue ties today. They are all celebrating birthdays. And throw in there my father, who has passed. I'm going to cheat a little bit, who's June 30th. And my mom. My mom is July 1st. And my mom is all of 83 today. And you know what, Mom? You're looking great. And you know what? My mom is still kicking. It's unbelievable. And I only hope I have those genes. And so she's now 84 years young. So, Mom, I love you, Mom. So now let's get to what's important here. Dr. Pollock, first of all, you are a neuropsychologist.
That is correct.
So tell us, what is a neuropsychologist? When I hear that word, I'm thinking, I don't know what it means. It just means a lot of education. It means someone brilliant. What is a neuropsychologist?
A neuropsychologist is a regular psychologist who has gone to graduate school and earned a PhD. But then in the process of getting that PhD, they study the brain. And our specialty is in understanding injuries, illnesses, and other pathology of the brain and how to treat it and how to help people recover from things like concussions.
Well, I saw this article, and if you didn't see it, Houston, you got to read it to believe it, as they say, where there is a new sport called, I don't know exactly the word, but it's slapping, where you just stand there and there's another person standing in front of you and you just take 3 hits at each other. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And of course, if you knock somebody out, well, you win. And it's becoming the hottest sport in America. It's unbelievable, just slapping. And, and there's all these techniques to slapping and all this kind of stuff. And of course, you have to sit there and you can't move. And I thought to myself, and I did martial arts for about 11 years. It's been a little while. But, when you think about martial arts and other things, you really are trained and you've got self-defense, you can somehow prepare. But when you're just in a slapping contest, you're just there taking the blow. That's got to be terrible on the brain, just to take a blow, just sitting there and bam, right? What am I missing there?
You're not missing anything. The people who participate in it are the ones who are missing something or who are going to miss something very soon.
That's right?
That's correct. That's the exact same repetitive impact that the professional football players had when they were playing football, and they had to come to an agreement with the owners on how they were going to settle the agreement. But if you're sitting there and someone is hitting your head, your whole head reverberates, goes back and forth. And when that happens, there are billions of nerve cells in the brain. And those nerve cells, as we sit here today talking, they're all connected together. They allow what's in the left side of the brain to communicate with what's on the right side of the brain. But if you're sitting here and if you're foolish enough to let someone try to hit you hard enough to knock you out, all of those nerve cells are pulled apart. And when it happens over and over and over, I gather that there's not just one game you play, that you must play this game over and over.
Well, because they have like a whole championship belt and everything. It's unbelievable.
It's the very same reason that I personally, as a neuropsychologist, oppose sports like boxing, sports like football. Now, I'm a Texan. I grew up here in Brazoria County, and growing up, I love football. I played football, and if I had it all to do over again, I would stupidly do it again.
Yeah.
But the fact is, I did not allow either of my sons, who were great athletes, to play football because I knew of the damage to their brain that it was doing. And so it's just like the slapping game. That is doing nothing but injuring the brain of the person who's playing it.
But what's interesting about what you said is, with football, at least, there's some sort of contact and you can defend yourself on that contact.
True.
But with slapping, and you haven't seen it, I've seen it now, not live, but on the YouTube and stuff, you're sitting there completely defenseless. And that person's like doing like 1, 2, like getting it ready to rev up, and then wham. And so it's just, and you can see the impact when they slow motion, where the whole face is contorted, and you can see all the I mean, it's just scary as can be. And when they hit them really hard, they're like stunned and they just fall back like that. And before, when they first started it, apparently, people would just hit the ground. And now they have 2 people as spotters behind to catch them if they start falling. But then still they have a like a place, I don't know, like a stool in front of them, and many of them fall forward and hit the stool again, a second impact before it falls, which has got to be worse, right? Because you're stunned, and then bam, and your weight of your body. It's unbelievable. I mean, what do you say to people like that when you say, and you want to regulate this as a sport? You can't. I mean, can you regulate something like that?
You can, but I don't think you should. It's just like boxing. We've got all these different boxing groups and so forth. And growing up in a small East Texas town, boxing was something I did growing up, and something I love to do is competition. You're trying to man on man, mano a mano.
Yeah.
You're trying to beat someone.
That's right.
And you got techniques and so forth. But today, as a neuropsychologist, I know what damage is being done to the boxer. And I know what damage is being done to the brain of the football player. You know, I'm a very unpopular person because I don't think football should be allowed. I think football should be
Banned.
Replaced, yeah. But by something else. But the thing is that every sport where there is some kind of blow to the head, that is bad for the brain. You can be sure, whether it's and even though soccer is not quite as bad, they do so much heading in soccer that the actual empirical research which has been done, shows that the soccer players have a very high rate of brain injury.
No kidding.
No kidding, soccer.
Well, let me ask you this. What are most of your patients? Do you see individual patients?
Motor vehicle accidents.
I see. And they're like, so they have a car accident, and it's always the second impact that really is the worst thing, right? Because the car's there, and then you're flying out like a bullet almost inside the car, and I guess you're hitting the steering wheel or you're hitting something.
That's exactly right. Most people, a lot of car accidents are rear enders in traffic.
Right.
And so the person is hit, as you described, their head flies back,
right,
and it hits on the
what do you call that, headrest thing?
Headrest, and that damages the neurons in the back of the brain. Then they fly forward, and they hit their head on the steering wheel or on the windshield. Now, all head injuries are not the same. They differ from mild to moderate to severe. So the harder the blow is, the more repetitive the blow is, the more damage that is done to the brain.
Wow. Hold that thought 1 second. Hold on, Houston. We're going to come back to Dr. Pollack because we have a caller already. Is there an Alex on the line?
Hi, Gilbert.
Yes, sir, Alex. You have me. A tip from Gilbert. Of course, I'm Gilbert with Dr. Pollack, who is I'm going to break it down for regular people like me, a brain man. He knows everything about the brain, and that's what you need to know from time to time when you really do things and you're hurting, have a brain injury. So what do you got there, Alex?
Well, first of all, good morning, Gilbert. Good morning, Dr. Pollack. And first, I want to wish a very happy birthday to your mom. I just heard on the radio that it's her birthday, and
yes,
obviously a grand thing. So I just wanted to congratulate her and the rest of the family.
Thank you, my friend.
So the reason I was calling is because I guess it's a good thing you have Dr. Pollack on the line, because I'm trying to see what's going on in someone's brain in the Metro Rail or the Metro organization. I saw on the news yesterday on the Houston Chronicle something about someone made a decision to remove the BRT line, the University BRT line. And as a former University of Houston student who relied on public transportation to get to all across the city, I was kind of mind blown, because it seems like the city takes 2 steps forward and 3 steps back when it comes to public transportation. And I wanted to see what your thoughts on the matter were.
Well, I could take a whole show on that, but I appreciate the call because I am writing a piece for the Houston Chronicle, and I can't believe it. We spent so much time at Metro. I used to be the chairman of Metro, and we really made it transparent. I think it's unfathomable that they could just pitch this thing that has been on the docket of Metro for 20 to 25 years, and they did it like in the night. In other words, they didn't tell anybody. There were no hearings, no community meetings. There was nothing. There wasn't even a discussion with a vote to see where all the board members fall out. It's outrageous. And of course, all those same old anti-transit people like Bill King, who tried to call me out in this editorial that he wrote. Of course, he misquotes me. He quoted me correctly, but he didn't really go through the whole thing I wrote, where I said specifically, Bill, maybe you didn't read the whole thing. It said here, Metro should build the University line connecting the 22-mile rail network with the Uptown BRT. Without the University line, the entire system is incomplete and will never meet ridership expectations. Now, Bill, how come you don't say that when you just pull out one little sentence? That's what's wrong, when people just manipulate the stories and the facts. And you know what? That's another reason for this show to call out irresponsible stuff like that. So I'm going to be writing a story, and I'm going to talk about a collusion between those same old frustrated people that want to see the suburbs thrive and the inner city they don't care about. Those same old anti-transit people, a collusion between that and the city's broke. So I get the fact that the city's broke, but don't take Metro's money when we've been fighting to get to this point since really 1988. So I appreciate you talking about it. I think I'm going to do a whole episode on it. It's outrageous, Houston. And at a minimum, we should demand, where do all those board members stand? Where do they should be held accountable, not to the mayor, but to themselves and to the voters. The voted for transit twice already, just in the last 12 years. And these weren't close votes. The first one that I did in 2012 was almost 80%, and the second one in 2019 was by almost 70%. These are what's called landslides. So, and then of course, Mayor Whitmire, you know, when I was on the campaign trail, I asked you, what are the plans for Metro? And you would never really say anything. At the end of the day, if you're going to take Metro's money like Mayor Bob Lanier did, just tell us and let the people have an opinion about it. Just don't do it. And that's what it looks like they're setting up. They're already putting out the narrative. We really can't afford it. We can't do it, which smells to me like they're going to do a Bob Lanier all over again, which has tripled Metro since the late 80s. Alex, I got a lot more to say, but we're going to come back to the brain doctor here in a moment. So, Alex, thank you for calling in. Hey, let's call in next week. My next week's show is going to be with Amy Peck, council member. She's wonderful. She may not be as loud and vocal as I am, but I'm going to be me, as you know. So thank you, Alex, for calling in.
Thank you, Gilbert. Have a great rest of your show.
Thank you, my friend. So, Doctor, let's go back. And so when you think about it, you know, you see people, and one of the things I have learned in my brief encounters of people with stroke is that when you have a stroke, there's typically something, and of course, I'm not a doctor, so you correct me. If some sort of plaque or something goes to the brain or something like that, it'll kill that brain tissue or that connections. And if you don't get to that patient within some amount of time, they're going to be impaired, maybe permanently, maybe even lose their life. But there's now, with such wonderful modern science, many things in the medical center where they can give you certain drugs and so forth to really help you and revive you. The key is to, if you see someone, Houston, that's having a stroke, to identify it and get to the hospital right away, because a matter of minutes can mean everything. Am I right, doctor?
You're absolutely right. And at the medical center, there's even a stroke team.
Is that right?
Yes, it's headed by a doctor whose specialty is strokes. And if there is a call on 911 that someone has had a stroke, they will immediately send him out and his team. He brings a nurse and various other specialties with him. And he's very good. He really knows what to do.
Well, I'm going to interrupt you. How do you know you're having a stroke? You tell people, what are the symptoms of someone? If I or someone here at work, we see someone having something, how do we know? Call the stroke team.
So the brain has 6 different areas or domains, and any of those can be affected. The one that people probably notice the quickest is that the person's memory goes out, and along with it, their language. They're not able to speak. They say things like, and they're just trying to say their name.
Mm-hmm.
And you also can tell when they're having physical problems, when they have a seizure, when they fall to the ground. And the EMRs, the guys that run the ambulances, are trained in this so that they know when there's a stroke, and they very often call. I was in a situation recently where the EMR called the stroke team correctly because the patient was having a stroke, and the doctor came and they gave them a shot because there is a shot. I think it's within the first 60 minutes or first hour that is given in the abdomen, and that shot will reverse many, if not all, of the symptoms of a stroke. But you got to get it quick.
Wow. Well, I mean, this sounds ridiculous, but like I have allergies, so I have an EpiPen.
Right.
Why wouldn't we all just like here in our office have one of those just ready in case we see a stroke and just bam, do it?
Because it's not that easy.
Oh, I see. You got to know what you're doing.
Yes, you do.
I know, but when it's between life and death, right? You got to just go fast.
Well, I think that's an interesting idea, and it may exist someplace that I'm unaware of.
Mm-hmm.
But with a stroke, there are many medical complications. It's not just that they, like with the EpiPen, you can stop the asthma or whatever it is that the person's having. But with the stroke, there are so many different biological consequences that are going on that, in addition to the shot, they're going to be immediately put in an ICU. They're going to be, that's a very high level of emergency that if someone is put in an ICU, that's very serious. So that I have a hard time seeing it working the same way the EpiPen works, but it might.
And what about this? Is there any way we could, this again is just Houston, me, I'm just me, to design a helmet that somehow has a helmet within a helmet with like shock absorbers inside, or like, you see those things that say, I'm gelling that plastic stuff that people put in their shoes, put that in between to somehow have something to absorb some of the impact of the brain with the collision of the helmets and the football game. Is there anything like that we can do?
They are working constantly on developing the best possible helmet, one which will absorb the shock.
Right.
And they've made progress, but they haven't come up with one that completely eliminates the effect. Let me give you an example. A guy is broken loose. He's running down the field, and someone tackles him. He falls and he hits the ground.
Right.
Now, he may not even hit his head, but his head is moving. And when he hits the ground, the whole brain goes like that. So even if you had something that absorbed the shock, you still have the reverberation of the brain. And you've heard of the shaken baby syndrome.
Well, no, tell me.
Okay.
I can imagine by hearing it, but no, I don't know what that is.
In neurology, there's a very famous syndrome that many babies are brain injured by caretakers who get angry, get upset, take the baby and shake it.
Oh man! Oh, that's terrible.
No one hits the baby. No one throws the baby down. They just shake the baby, and so just from that shaking can actually kill the baby. You reacted the way you should, and many times, even though the baby may not be killed, many parts of the brain are injured. The part that controls language, the part that controls memory, or various walking issues. So when you're talking to a psychologist or neuropsychologist about the effects of a brain injury, it's not just getting the slapping part.
Right.
It's the fact that when a person is tackled and they hit the ground, the whole head shakes.
Well, and sometimes you'll see these replays where a player is hitting the ground and the body will hit really hard, and then the neck pops back and hits the turf really hard.
Exactly.
It's almost like the head part. It's almost like a whipping motion where the spine is whipping the head down or something. And maybe I'm saying something that doesn't even make sense.
No,
but I mean, you can see it. It's like, oh my God, that's got to be he's got to be hurt. And it's interesting. In the old days, they would say things like, oh, he got his bell rung. And everybody thought, oh, it's, give him some smelling sauce. And you see, remember the Cowboys. Troy Aikman would sit there on the side, and you knew he was having a concussion. He wasn't even there. Remember all that? I mean, we have come a long way. Smelling salts, get back in there. You're okay. I mean, when they're probably not even, their brain is still foggy.
There's a protocol that the professional football teams have developed that if there's an observer who is in the where the broadcasters are, who are looking at every player on every play, and sometimes they'll stop play and they'll take a player out of the game, and that's because the spotter sees that the person isn't reacting normally. So there's a big improvement in the game.
That sounds great. I mean, relatively speaking.
Well,
I think you and I should just patent this helmet idea. The more I think about it, a helmet in a helmet with that gelling stuff that we walk on those. I'm gelling. Remember that commercial? Maybe you don't know that commercial.
I know it.
Okay,
I know it
it would go in between somehow, so it would absorb it. But you heard it here first, Houston. Well, let's go to something else. So, what got you interested in the brain so much?
When I was 16 years old, my plan was to become a medical doctor. I wanted to be a neurologist. I was fascinated by what it is that controls the crazy things that people do.
Yep.
When I was 16 years old, I developed a visual problem, and I can see, but I can't see. I've got peripheral vision, but that's all. So when I got to college at Stephen F. Austin up in Nacogdoches, the advisor said, "Why don't you try psychology?" So I did, and I found the field of neuropsychology as a specialty in it. And then I started doing research and so forth, and I decided that's where I wanted to devote my career. Now, what I've discovered also is that one of the very difficult things is treating people with chronic mental illness. It's badly needed. People that have schizophrenia or that have bipolar disorder or people that have other serious, what we consider more severe psychological problems. And I did that kind of work for a while. I treated patients who would come into my office and we would talk and they would leave. And within a month, they'd be back in the hospital. And I just didn't feel that I was successful. And so I started looking into the field of the more active field of specific areas of neuropsychology. And my patients, I have a clinic here in Houston. It's called I'm blanking on the name of my own clinic.
It doesn't say it on here.
No, it doesn't have it on.
It's got to be a great clinic, though. That's okay.
But anyway, what we do in that clinic is prepare people to return to work. And we have a contract with the Workforce of Texas, and they send injured workers to our clinic for treatment. And I received a thank you notice from the Texas Workforce. Project Reentry is the name of my clinic.
Oh, how wonderful.
Project, because they're reentering the workforce.
Right.
Yeah. And they said that they wanted to thank us for having returned 1,500 people to the workforce.
Wow.
That's 1,500.
Doesn't that make you feel good?
Oh, it does.
I mean, that's really.
I feel like I've accomplished.
You've accomplished 1,500 miracles. Hold that thought. We got another caller already. Kenna, are you there? Oh, she'll call back. Kenna, if you're listening, call back. I know you were on for a while. I just didn't have a good break there. She hung up. Hello. Kenna. All right.
Hello.
We'll keep going.
One moment, Jesse. Let me transfer your call to Gilbert.
Hold on, we got another caller. Kenna, you can still call in. And now who do we have? We have Jesse. Jesse, you got me. Gilbert Garcia with Dr. Larry Pollock.
Yes, sir. Gilbert Garcia. Good morning. This is
you went out there, Jess. Jess, you there, brother? Brother, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear. Good morning, Mr. Gilbert. Thank you again for your prayer, and I hope you do it at the beginning of every show. Yes. Oh,
I got you. Yeah, you got you. We got you. Keep going.
all right. And then I just want to say I'm watching you for the comfort of my home on my big screen TV on YouTube. And I just want to encourage everybody that are home and they can watch you on YouTube loud and clear. And also, just want to say to the doctor is ask him how much does drinking alcohol affect on the brain, because that's one of the big problems in our community.
Well, before we do that, just remember, did I have a good hair and makeup day? Now that I'm on a big TV screen of yours. Did
Yes, sir.
Did I do okay? I mean, I don't.
Looking,
You know.
you're looking good. You deserve to be on the cover of GQ.
Thank you, Jess. Larry, what about that? What role does alcohol play in all this?
We know that if someone has a head injury while they're under the influence of alcohol, it makes the head injury worse. Alcohol is a toxin. It's a poison. And so it poisons. I hate to tell you that.
No. But no, this is fascinating. Let's talk it straight.
Alcohol is a poison. So whether we're sitting around watching a ball game and drinking a 6-pack with our buddies, or whether we are at the stadium and buy one of those atrociously expensive beers, we're killing our brain because it's poison. And it affects the way the brain processes. That if someone drinks a margarita, just one margarita is going to affect the way they drive when they leave that place. Now, they may not be technically or legally drunk, but they've got a buzz.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the things. Now, I sound like Mr. Goody Two-Shoes.
Well, no, you're Mr. Safe, because remember, it's all about safety.
Well, for me, it is. And I don't drink alcohol. I quit drinking alcohol several years ago during COVID. And the COVID affected me, and the alcohol affected the COVID. So I thought, this is no good. I know better. I no reason for me to have a 6-pack or any other kind of drink.
Well, let me ask you this then, Jesse. I'm going to ask the part 2 to your question, because just listen to you, doctor. It sounds like when you're drinking, it's bad, but does it have long-term destruction of the brain? Is it something that makes it long-term bad?
It does, but to be honest, you have to drink a lot for a long time to start seeing the effects of really chronic alcoholism. Now, you can start seeing the effects of someone who drinks a little bit early on, but there are many functioning alcoholics in our society today. And it's because they have a 6-pack or something, and then they watch the game, then they go to bed, they wake up the next morning with a hangover, but everything else is fine. I hate that all of my favorite ball teams are being supported financially and advertisement wise with alcohol, because if we're talking safety, we shouldn't be drinking alcohol. But we're never going to. We found out once we can't get rid of alcohol.
That's right. That's right. Well, Jesse, that's very interesting. I'm so glad you brought that up. What other things do you have there for Dr. Pollock there, Jesse?
No, I know in the community, the Hispanic community, about sniffing shoe shine or paints or markers, those magic markers are sniffing. I know that affects the brain. It's really bad. So I know that's another important issue in our community is sniffing. So you can address that.
Sniffing glue or paint or both?
Glue, paint, shoe shine, all those products.
What's in those products that makes you, number one, I guess it gives you a high. I've never done it. I guess it gives you a high of some sort. And what
makes you high?
And what does it do to the brain?
It does the same thing to the brain that alcohol does to the brain. It destroys it. And the sniffing phenomenon that Jesse's talking about is one of the worst of all. When I was in graduate school, there was a big focus on what they called huffing, and people would go to the cars and they would put a bag or something of that type over the gas tank, and then they would huff it, and that would make them high.
Wow.
And it still does.
Wow. I didn't ever think people would do that.
When you want to get high, you'll do anything.
I mean, I guess that's right.
If you're creative enough and read enough. But I'm sorry to say that gasoline will do that, but it will.
Very interesting. That's a great, interesting point there, Jess. Anything else, my friend?
No, sir. You're doing a great job, a great show, and just encourage everybody to share your show on Facebook or on up to YouTube.
Thank you very much, Jess, for calling in. Call in all the time, Jess. We really enjoy you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Did we have another caller? Did Keena call back? Michelle?
Hello? Hello? Hi, Michelle. Let me transfer you to Gilbert. One moment.
Michelle, are you there? You got me, Gilbert Garcia. A tip from Gilbert with the brain doc. I'm going to call him the brain doc, Dr. Larry Pollack. What do you got there, Michelle?
Hey, how's everyone doing today?
We're doing great. Talk to us. What do you got?
So I have a question for the doctor.
Please.
In a recent study, they found that Black and Brown communities remain underrepresented in neuropsychology practice and research. So, I mean, I'm from the inner city and work with individuals in that field of mental health. How does your practice account for this underrepresentation? And what work have you done in our community here in Houston to address this underrepresented group, my underrepresented group?
Well, I think it's very unfortunate that your group is underrepresented. I think a lot of neuropsychologists are aware of that, and each year we have to get what are called continuing education hours, and we have to obtain at least 9 hours of continuing education. And one of the topics which is beginning to show up is getting research done on people with dark skin. And you're right, there may be differences. We don't know right now, so I treat everybody the same. I assume that a football player who is Black, who has a brain injury, and who I'm treating for a brain injury, has the same kind of brain that the white football player has, or the brown football player has, who has had the same kind of injury. Now, we may find out as time passes on that there are subtle differences and things that can be done. As far as what am I doing personally, I simply have a clinic, and anybody is welcome in my clinic. We have people of all races, Vietnamese, Middle Eastern. I was talking to a Middle Eastern gentleman the other day about the fact that what I know about really is Caucasian brain injury. I don't know about Middle Eastern brain injury, but I'm sure they have them just the same as we do.
Yes.
And I think much more can be done and probably will be done. Your call is a good help.
Oh, thank you.
What
Thank
else,
you so
Michelle?
much.
You got a follow up on there?
I'm sorry?
You got a follow up to that question?
Well, I mean, it's just like I say, we're so underrepresented, and it is sad. It is very sad, especially with strokes, like are very prominent in the Black community, and
Yes, they are.
a lot of it is we don't know where to go, or we don't have the resources to get to where we need to be. So I was just really just wondering what he's doing and what is his plan going forward.
Yeah, what can we do to reach the community, the people of color, so they know, so they're educated more about the dangers and that they know where they can seek help?
One of the main reasons that people don't go to the medical center or to a hospital is the cost.
I was just going to say that.
and many people, even in medical, head injury situations, like two cars crash into each other, and you talk to one of the victims and you say, "Did you go to the hospital?" They say, "No, I didn't want to pay for an ambulance." And they should have gone to a hospital. Most of them are going to be okay, but they need to have a CT scan or an MRI or some other kind of testing to be sure that there's not bleeding in the brain or some other kind of treatment. but people there needs to be affordable transportation via ambulance to the hospitals. And I don't know of any other program other than the one that I mentioned earlier, which is a stroke program. And if you have a stroke, perhaps more publicity. Everything has to do these days with publicity, but getting some sort of publicity in all communities in the city, that there is this stroke team who will protect you in the case of a stroke. But I think that would be the main thing, is that to know that if you call 911, now it is going to, in most cases, cost money.
Yeah.
But in some cases it doesn't.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you have any Black doctors on staff?
I do.
You do. Okay.
Actually, I'm told that you have one that's phenomenal.
I do. She is
Dr. Monique Chapman.
Yes,
Right?
Yes, I do, and she is fantastic. I was very lucky when I found her, and she brings that element to our fact.
And tell us about her, though, real quick. Where's her education? How long has she been with you?
She's only been with me about 6 months. I've forgotten where her education is from. It was just.
Is she a local Houstonian?
I don't know, Monique. Where are you from?
She is from Houston.
Yes, and as far as she's participated in numerous practicum courses, internships, and other experiences to earn her PhD. And so she is a wonderful addition to the services that we have to offer.
But Michelle, your point, I think where you're going is dead on, which is we've got to make sure people of color know about these things. And we've got to get them in these fields, get them more exposure, because that way they can reach out to the community. And so the community can be more aware of prevention and how to treat it.
Yes.
Michelle, thank you so much for calling.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
calling,
you,
Michelle.
guys.
You're the best.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. We have 2 more callers, and then I want to get to you on another thing. Let's go. We have, is there Joshua? I thought I saw Joshua.
Joshua? Oh, Miss Brewer?
Miss Brewer's good.
Hello?
We'll take Miss Brewer.
Hello? Joshua?
We'll take Joshua.
One more.
And we'll take Keenan if you're back, Keenan. Who do you got first?
Joshua.
Joshua, you there? Joshua.
Hi, this is Gilbert in the doc.
You got us. You got me, Gilbert Garcia of A Tip from Gilbert with Dr. Larry Pollack, known as the Brain Dude. You're going to be all kinds of names before we're done. Go for it. What do you got there, Josh?
Yes, thank you for having me. I actually have 2 questions. Starting with the doc, you guys mentioned earlier about strokes. I have a family member that recently had a stroke, and I was wondering if you had any advice on like helping them through the process of post-stroke and how best to comfort them. If you had any advice on that.
Yes, I do. So every stroke is different. So what is true for your relative may not fit everything I say. But if the stroke happens on the left side of the head, the right side of the body is going to be possibly paralyzed, and vice versa. If the stroke is on the right side of the head, the left side of the body will be paralyzed. It is extremely important with what we know in terms of the plasticity of the brain today to get that person in physical therapy. They need to, and I'm a nut on all physical therapy. I don't think the insurance companies, bless their soul, limit the amount of treatment that you can get under physical therapy. Speech and language training is very important. If the stroke is on the left side of the brain, that means that the part of the brain which controls language and how we communicate with each other has been affected. And it is extremely important for that person to be getting intensive speech therapy. And again, I'm a nut when it comes down to speech therapy. Speech therapists are wonderful. And even if the person doesn't like these exercises. Like at the hospital where I was the director of neuropsychology for a number of years, the patients often didn't call it physical therapy. They called it physical torture. And the reason they did is that when you have to do all the exercises that you do to restore the ability to walk, and that's why I say it depends a lot on the severity of the person's stroke. That some strokes, the person will never walk again. They will be wheelchair bound. But I had a patient in the hospital who was hit by an automobile while he was running and preparing for a marathon run. And every night he held onto his wheelchair and walked his wheelchair around and around and around the floor of the hospital. And his goal was to run a marathon again. Now, the last time I talked to that gentleman, he called me up because he was so happy. He had just run a 10K.
Come on.
He had.
Wow.
It was from his personal commitment and a good physical therapy.
Yes.
We had a very good physical therapy team. So yes, and I would not doubt that he eventually made it up to a marathon. But
Gosh.
I don't know that.
Well, let me ask you this, Joshua. I'm gonna piggyback on you. Is it seems to me, and of course I don't know anything. So, doctor, you tell me if I'm wrong. It seems to me the first thing is to make sure they're not depressed, that they don't fall into this spiral of, oh my God, look at me. And that you got to give them hope, right? And you got to make sure they realize that they can get better. They can get, rather than, and I don't know. It seems to me that's the first hurdle.
It's the first hurdle, and it's a long hurdle.
Yes.
Because recovery from stroke takes a long time. And the person has to be dedicated to, I'm going to recover. I'm going to overcome this.
Mm-hmm.
And the family is very important because the family has to be there providing support, providing encouragement. And when the person says, I don't want to go to that physical therapy anymore,
Make them go.
Make them go.
Make them go. Joshua, hopefully that's a good lesson for you, which is for that family member, hug them tight and pray with them and tell them it can get better. And when they try to ditch one of their physical therapy, take them.
Yeah.
And by the way, I think,
thank you so much.
Isn't that Memorial Herm, that TIRR? I've heard about that. I hear it's wonderful.
It is.
I mean, I just hear it's like this, the best, and they have nothing but wonderful, wonderful people working there. It's really a labor of love to really help a lot of the folks that are there.
It is.
Yeah. What else you got for us there, Josh? Anything?
Yeah. So I had also read about the Metro line, University line.
Oh my God! Here you go. Get me going. Get me going. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what do you say in response to some of these claims that it was just too expensive to do the line? I know they've been planning for years, and I'm sure a lot of work has gone into this project. And it seems a little bit unbelievable, the claims that it was just too expensive. And as the former Metro director, what do you say to those claims? Do you think anything's changed, or do you think that someone's like fighting some numbers, or is that just like
well, what's changed is a new mayor who knows the city's broke, and a new Metro chair that's going to do whatever the mayor says, which is find a way to develop a narrative that we're broke. I mean, that Metro can't do things, so we can take that money for the mismanagement that's gone on at Houston for so long. That's what's changed. And at the end of the day, it makes no sense. And if it did make sense, well, where's all the community engagement? I would have never done something like this when I was Metro chair. To do even small things, we'd have community meetings, we'd let everyone know, we were transparent, and we'd vote on it. It makes no sense because they just pitched it all without a vote, without any transparency, without any community engagement or community meetings, and they're just hoping that no one's going to care, and they're just going to move on, and it makes no sense because if you go back to the original drawings of Metro, go back to 1978 when they started putting it together, and you go back to every iteration since. There's a recognition that Houston is spread out, but we do have these population centers and work destinations. Of course, we have Uptown, Galleria. Of course, we have Greenway Plaza. Greenway Plaza. You've got downtown. You've got U of HD. You've got the medical center and of course, the sports stadiums, NRG, and the whole plan was connect those. And until you connect them all, it's never going to be complete. And you got stuff on the Post Oak side, you got stuff on the east side, which of course is the rail, but they're not connected. And that's why all the Metro haters that just want to see Metro fail, that do not want to see the inner city prosper, they're always just dogging Metro. They'll distort the facts. They'll pick out word choices like this article that Bill King wrote. He didn't say the part where I wrote, Metro should build the University line connecting the 22-mile rail network with the Uptown BRT. Without the University line, the entire system is incomplete and will never meet ridership expectations. This goes back to 2019. He quoted me, but he didn't quote me properly. He didn't really quote me. He picked out a select part to make his case to dog Metro. We got to stop sort of that kind of nonsense. At the end of the day, everyone knows you need to commit the two. And you know what? Here's the thing. What's your solution? Mr. King, come on. If you don't do something, what are we going to do? Keep choking on traffic? Keep choking on our air? You're going to keep building miles and miles of freeway to nowhere? I mean, the Grand Parkway to nowhere? Come on. Let's stop all this nonsense, and let's do what every other city is doing in America, which is figuring out traffic, how to make our air better, how to save people's work time so they're not always stuck in traffic, and how to leverage available federal dollars that, because the federal government is running out of those federal dollars, if we don't get some of those funds here for Houston, it's just going to go somewhere else. So my goodness, don't even get me going, because boy, there's a lot to say. I'll do an episode on that. So I appreciate you calling in there, Josh.
Well, yeah, I appreciate you having me. Thank you, Gilbert.
Thank you.
Doctor, for your advice.
Thank you. We have a doctor. Was it a Dr. Brewer? Who was that? You saw it. Mr. Brewer. Is there a Mr. Brewer there?
Miss Brewer.
Miss Brewer. Excuse me. Miss Brewer. Miss Brewer.
Hello.
Miss Brewer, how are you?
Just good. How about you, Mr. Garcia?
I'm doing just well. You have me and you have Larry Pollock of the
Very good.
the brain doctor.
The doctor is in the house.
There you go. What's been going on with you, and what's been happening with society and everything else?
Well, I was calling in because of the mental health, your presentation today. And, you know, that's one of those areas where in mental health, there have been some government cuts there. So I had a question for the doctors, and I'm all about solutions too. So I just wanted to ask him a question and see if he could elaborate on it.
Go for it.
Just wanted to ask Dr. Pollock, what options do family members have to get someone help when they're having leading up to a mental health crisis? You know, instead of waiting before it's a life or death situation, is there help that family members can seek out, even if the person is unreluctant about going to get treatment? We want to offer solutions. I'm looking to see how we can better offer solutions for these families that where their loved one may be having mental health crisis, getting severe, getting hostile, but you know, we don't want to just trying to see, do we have to wait till there's a life or death situation to get some intervention? Can you elaborate, please?
You've brought up one of the most serious problems in my mind in the mental health field. And that is frankly one reason why I don't practice in the mental health field, because if you have a person in your family who is upset, who is angry, and who wants to change things, that they have to go someplace. They have to go to a counselor. They have to go to a hospital. They have to go to a clinic. There has to be someplace where they go. But if they're really angry, they don't want to go to those places. They just want people to leave them alone and let them do their drugs or whatever it is that they're doing. Now, there's a great need in that area, and I would suggest calling the crisis hotline. I don't have those numbers with me, but there is a crisis hotline that the family can call and get assistance in terms of dealing with the crisis. For the individual, should it be something serious like self-harm, there's the suicide hotlines. And the people that man those are very good at helping talk a person down, get them calmed down, get them focused towards something that's a solution, as you suggested. But it's very difficult to deal with a person who is emotionally upset. So the time to try to deal with them is when they are not upset.
Very interesting. Ms. Brewer, what are your thoughts?
That sounds relatively good. However, when they're not upset, most of the time we find that some people don't think they need help. So,
True.
And it takes anything to trigger these individuals, and then they're back at that crisis state. So, just trying to see what legislation or either what intervention that families can have as options, because we see there's an uptick with aggressions in these families, especially with drug abuse and stuff like that.
Really. There's one thing I want to mention, and especially on this program, and that is that you should be paying attention to the resources available in your church. Many pastors are really very good counselors, and if they are contacted by the person who's upset, they very often can be the difference between a person finding help and not finding help. Now, I'm not trying to say that every pastor would want me to have a long line of patients who need help at their front door, but I would really know whether or not the person is participating in a church. And that, to me, is one of the greatest solutions of all, is to have the patient participate in a church, if they will.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Ms. Drewer, I really appreciate you calling, and please call in again. We always enjoy your all the things that you do out there in the community.
Thank you. Thank you for your help. Thank you for your information, Dr. Pollock.
Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful.
And thank you, Mr. Garcia. Talk soon.
Always. We have another caller, but before we do that, just educate us on something, because Ms. Brewer was talked a lot about mental health. The brain is so interesting because there's a lot of things that are sort of mental health. There are things that are, hereditary, and maybe those are the same. And then there are things that are trauma inflicted, and those are all different. And then there are some that are more like age related. Just talk us a little bit about, for example, you hear the term Alzheimer's all the time. You hear the term dementia all the time. What are some of those differences?
Well, let's start with Alzheimer's, because that is one of the things that most of us older people are worried about. And it takes away your memory. And as a result, a person cannot even remember the names of their children or of people that they grew up with, and things of that type that are important. But what I will share with you is that in terms of the statistics on Alzheimer's, the last time I saw any statistics, they were only about 10% of the population is going to get Alzheimer's. So it's not likely that me and you are going to get Alzheimer's. And the question is it inheritable? And I've read studies where it said that it wasn't inheritable.
It was not, or is?
Is not.
Is not.
But in my practice, I see many people where they have Alzheimer's, their parents have Alzheimer's, their children are afraid that they're going to have Alzheimer's. So what I see appears to be in the community, the inheritance of Alzheimer's, but the research on that has said, no, it's not.
And what's dementia then?
So there are really 7 stages of dementia, and it's a deterioration of the brain. The brain is just no longer functioning properly.
Because it's just getting old and tired?
Yes.
Okay.
And it starts off with some very mild problems where there are some mild memory problems. They're not serious. They're just little things that, you forget your lunch, or you forget something that you were supposed to do.
Dr. Pollock, you're not going to believe this. Our 1 hour's over.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it. And that's why I'm interrupting you, only because I want you to look in that camera and I want you to say to whatever you want to say. Tell us where your clinic is. Tell us how people can reach out. Give us your website. Just give us everything that's right there, because I want people to know how they can reach out to you. And look right in that camera. You're looking at Houston. You're looking at almost 100,000 or more people.
So our clinic is called Project Reentry. It's located in the area that I guess I would classify as San Felipe, or near the where San Felipe at what's the nearest cross street?
Outside? Is it outside the loop?
Yes.
Okay. Is it past like all the uptown and all that, or
Yes.
further out?
It's the big mall. What is it called?
Oh,
Galleria.
Yes.
We are very near the Galleria.
Okay.
I'm demonstrating my own.
No. You got about 30 seconds there, Doc.
Okay. Our telephone number is 713-727 79. Michelle.
Here, I got it. 727. I'm so sorry. 713-797-7663. Larry at projectreentry.com. I think we're going to be off. Houston, you heard it here. Come back. We'll see you next time. This is Gilbert Andrew Garcia. Listen to my radio show, A Tip from Gilbert. Talk, inspiration, and prayer every Monday from 11 a.m. till noon on Houston's gospel leader, KWWJ. 1360 AM and streaming live on kwwj.org. Listen on the legendary KYOK 1140 AM and streaming live on kyokradio.org. KCOH 1230 AM, The Source. On Sandgeek Radio 95.1 FM 1460 AM. And Aliento Radio 101.7 FM and 1540 AM. Call in at 832-570-8075 and follow me on social media. See you then.